This is To the Front. Tools for today's top agents.
Welcome back. This is the Michael Jordan episode. And no, we don't have Michael Jordan coming on, but the folks that I have coming on are pretty doggone close. It is the Michael Jordan episode because it's episode number 23 of To the Front. And so I'm glad you were along for their journey. Hey, I'm going to tell you the hardest thing that I've ever done in life, but it's also the most rewarding. What is that, you say? It's marriage. Right. And if you are listening and you are married, you are bobbing your head because you know it's true. Marriage is the hardest thing you will ever do, but it is also the most rewarding. Now, if you're listening and you're not married, don't go away because I'm a big believer in learning even before you are married. Now, here's the thing. If you're like, Adam, I'm not getting married. I'm rolling solo. That's okay because there's still some of these principles that I think you're going to want to listen to because the episode for To the Front today is grow your agency without shrinking your marriage. Now, if you're not married, you can replace marriage with shrinking your relationships because I believe everybody needs relationships. And to come on and talk about that today, I'm going to bring on my friends, Casey and Todd Johns. Good morning, Casey, Todd. How are you all doing?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Good morning, buddy. Thanks for having us.
Hey. If you're following the podcast, you know we had Todd on back in episode, 7 or 8 when we tried to do in-studio stuff. And so we stopped all that because the sound quality is bad. But Todd was amazing. If you have not listened to that episode, you need to because that episode was titled What You Don't Know About Your Team Members. Really, really good stuff. In fact, I've had some incredible feedback from that episode. But today's episode, I'm bringing them on because Todd and Casey are not only the founders of Revive Lifehouse, but they've also launched a new endeavor called P3 Relationship Pros. And there's 3 P's, there's 3 pieces to this organization, and we're going to get to those in a minute. But one of the things that I love about you guys is not only are you entrepreneurs, you are leaders of a quickly growing organization. But what I notice is that your marriage is thriving and it's strong. Now, I know that every marriage has got like stuff you're like, but you don't know about this.
Yeah.
But truly, I love watching you guys work together. I love watching you guys serve each other. And so I wanted to bring you on and talk about this because you've got experience in growing things and maintaining relationships. And that's what the conversation is going to be about today. So, okay. So welcome. How'd I do on the intro?
Great. Good job,
okay?
man.
Great job. Yep.
Thank you. I'm looking for affirmation here, I guess. Fishing for yeah. Okay. Let's get started on it. I tell you what, before we get going, tell us a little bit about you guys, maybe how you met, how long you've been married, all that good stuff. And whoever wants to go first.
He's looking at me. I guess I gotta go.
I mean, I can talk a lot. I can. I'm giving you some. I'm going to give you.
I will go
Right.
first. Okay. So we met at Valley Forge Christian College. It's now University of Valley Forge. It's right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we both went to college there. And we met, we both worked in the cafeteria.
Met between our first and second semester as freshmen, and she fell head over heels ever since.
Right.
Wait, in the cafeteria, like you guys were both working in the cafeteria?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He was serving food, washing dishes. I was mostly at the salad bar. I didn't see the salad bar.
You looked all cute in that salad bar.
Cleaning tables, refilling the salad bar. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So
So
that
we also
was college.
met at college, and we're celebrating 20 years of marriage. We've been together 22, celebrating 20 years here this coming May 28th.
Yeah.
May 20 years of marriage.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's unbelievable because the national rate of marriages of divorce is now over 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to exist for 20 years is crazy, right? And not only do you have a 20-year marriage, but you work together. Tell us about that a little bit. Specifically about Revive.
Yeah. So we founded Revive back officially started with the Life House April 8th, 2016. And I was going to say, thinking about this coming into today's podcast, in some ways, it is obviously an honor and privilege to do that together. But I was thinking about the uniqueness of what we're going to talk about today in the context of our marriage. So, being married, founding something, and then obviously 24/7 together. So it's a little bit different in that regard. There's some of your folks probably listening that may work with their spouse. A lot of grace and a lot of unique
For sure.
challenges and things together. But it's also so rewarding. So
Yeah. I love my wife. I mean, we're almost at 20 years too. No way we're working together. No way. No way. This weekend, she was like, I need Monday to get here so you can get out of the house. I need Monday to babe, I love you, but I need you out. So it takes a special couple to do that. But what's so exciting about Revive Life House, which, even if you don't know Revive Life House, it is addiction recovery, it's counseling, it's all kinds of community services that help bring healing to people. And so I just joined the board, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I'm just trying not to mess up what you guys started, and try to bring some, I don't know if wisdom is the right word, but some sort of help to that. But I love it because it's incredible. Less than 10 years old. Isn't it about over 100 staff members?
Almost there. Actually, I think I look Friday. It's about 86.
Yeah.
86 staff members in that low of time, multiple locations, tons of complexity, but your marriage has continued to stay strong. And to me, it seems like it's grown. I didn't know you before from the cafeteria days, but it seems like it's grown. And so if you're listening today, this is the point we want to talk about. How do you grow your marriage grow your agency without shrinking your marriage? This is important.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that, like I said at the start, is that it's the hardest thing but it's the most rewarding thing that you'll ever do. And so I want to ask you about the hard real quick. When we think about marriages in the context of how do I give balance and grow my business. And so I guess my question is, why do you think our business endeavors, careers, whatever, hinder our marriages? I mean, why do you all see that, where sometimes the career, the business gets in the way, and so it's tough to grow one without hurting the other?
I'll share just real quick. One thing I was thinking about coming into this was some I guess marriage advice we got, premarital counseling going into it, and that is the 50-50 thing. That marriage isn't 50-50, and so as I was thinking about that, as us being already married and as a couple heading into it, in some ways we've had the privilege of understanding that. When we're going to go all in this endeavor and launching Revive, we thought we knew what that cost would be. We knew there was going to be sacrifice. We knew it was going to be hard work, but we had to go, come home together every night and work through that. And so, in regard to that, it's like we had that privilege to be able to do that. And in a lot of ways, when you have you're not married, but you're married to whatever endeavor you're starting or whatever business you're in, sometimes that might be difficult for the other person. So you just have to be committed to be all in and be committed to a season that says, hey, I'm going to work really, really hard at this. And I might only be able to give, 30% into this thing. And you're going to carry a lot with the family, a lot with our relationship and that sort of thing. Whereas we've been able to say, hey, when we come together at night, like, this has been a difficult week. We need to do something for our marriage this weekend. But I just, the analogy fits so well. And I was thinking about that. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add to that. I think it was helpful for us, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I honestly, I really feel like I had a great foundation coming into all this. I have really amazing parents who modeled marriage and family and ministry. And so from my perspective, I took what my parents have modeled for me and tried to apply a lot of those principles. They were both in ministry. They're retired now. Good for them. They did a lot of years in ministry, and they've been married for a long time too. I think 46. If they're listening to this, I hope I'm correct on that. I think so. So I feel like, for me, it was a really great model going into it. But, one of the things that we talked about even before we got married was that, he was very determined, like, I'm going to be in ministry. I know God is calling me to this. And for me, I knew the same thing, even though I was a little bit resistant at first. I knew the same thing. And so for us, we were both committed to, at some point, whatever it looks like, to be in ministry together. And like he said, it has not always been 50-50. So at the beginning, our kids were very young. And so I spent a lot of time, with the children at home, and he spent a lot of time on the business. And then it got to a point where I wanted to go back to school. And so he spent a lot of time with the kids. And I was doing a lot of schoolwork, and we were running the business at the same time. So I think it's not only a commitment to what you feel called to, but also to each other. And then knowing that even in seasons that it's not always going to be like, you are not always going to get what you want or the time that you want, but making that time every once in a while for each other has been important.
Yeah. So would you say that sometimes when people get that balance off, where if they're saying, hey, I'm trying to grow my business, my organization, my ministry, whatever it is, and I'm going to put my spouse on the sidelines. And sometimes I feel like, because I've been in this seat, I'm thinking, well, this is for the good of my family. This is for the advancement of our lives. And do you see a lot of people rationalizing it like that? Like, this is like, I'm working long hours. I'm doing all of these things because I want to better my family, right? But then the marriage sort of suffers, right? It seems like what you guys have done is said, hey, there's going to be seasons where one of us has got to focus on one part or another, but we balance it by the other person making sacrifices. That was kind of what I heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, though, is you have to stay committed to the marriage, to the relationship, even though there's going to be those seasons. One thing I was reminded of when you were sharing that is that coming into our marriage, we've always said that divorce was never going to be in our vocabulary, no matter what. We just wouldn't use it. We never thought about it. We don't talk about it. Yeah, we've had our ups and downs and arguments. Sure, everybody does. But the commitment between her and I was, that's not in our vocabulary. And so that's never an option on the table. It's nothing we would throw around. And I think a lot of times, in your businesses, people go into business thinking the same thing. Like, there is no second, there is no plan B. This is it. So I'm going to do whatever it takes. But being committed in that relationship is so equally important. We often say, like, to our kids, hey, like, one day you're going to grow up and leave us, but your mom, she's never leaving me. You know what I mean? Like, and one day you might grow something and parent it up and grow the business so that, it takes off to the place to where, you want it to be. And sometimes you might transition out of that, but at the end of the day, your relationship with your spouse, your significant other, is by far the greatest thing. Because if we're not content, happy, and peace and purposeful, all right, and have prosperity in our relationships, then everything else falters. If we're not careful. Everything hinges on that. If I'm not healthy in here, if I'm not healthy with her, then the byproduct of that is not going to be good. But if we are, then there's some good fruit from that. And so that's so important. Yeah.
So it sounds like we're talking about this marriage first mentality type thing. It's not just you choose your marriage or you choose your business. Is that like your business or whatever you're trying to grow actually does better when you put your marriage first? Because when you don't, when things are bad at home, it's tough to it's tough to sort of block that out a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, especially if you're sitting in a meeting together and you're trying to lead a team of people. So for us, whenever we're sitting with our executive team of really great leaders, if me and him are on the same page, everybody knows. And there's been times whenever he'll give me a little look, or I'll say
or
something,
more like you'll give me a look.
Or yeah. And, everybody probably recognizes it, but, we have had those times, but I think in terms of a lot like parenting, if I was to look at it like that, when we are on the same page, and we try to be on the same page as much as possible with our children, so that they know, like, okay, mom and dad are a united front. They're out for our best interest, but they also have these expectations. I think it's the same way here at Revive, where we have to talk about and communicate about decisions that we want to make, about the heart of and the direction and the values of the organization, so that when we are in front of our employees, children, not really children, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Leading others, that they know, okay, like Todd and Casey, they're pretty solid. They know what they're doing, and they're on the same page. They might be opposites, and they might disagree on some things sometimes, but for the most part, they're healthy. I think that's important.
And the vulnerability piece speaks to that as well, for sure. We got to be vulnerable with one another and to our team. So,
yeah, no, boy, vulnerability is huge. And I know sometimes, sometimes broad brush, right? But men struggle with that a little bit. So I don't know if you guys know, I've done almost 150 weddings in my life back to my pastor days. Yeah. I have a pretty. I keep stats, by the way. Don't you know? I keep stats. I only have 4 divorces, which I feel pretty good. I'm beating the national averages. I know that's a weird stat to keep, but out of the 150, I did probably 110 of their 110 couples of premarital counseling. Now, if my wife is listening, I'll put this stuff into play in our marriage too, babe. But one of the things I always talked about, I'm not a professional like you guys are in that, but one of the things in the premarital counseling, kind of more pastoral counseling, was one of the things I've always said is that, again, broad brushstroke, is that when we're talking about if the marriage is struggling, right, your business is going to struggle, that some of it plays into the mentality of a male and a female. Broad brushstrokes that doesn't apply to certainly everyone, right? And I know we've got female captive insurance agents and business owners listening, and we've got male captive insurance agents and business owners listening. And I always said that men are kind of like waffles and women are like spaghetti. Have you heard that analogy before?
No. Tell us more.
I'm not smart enough to make it up. I've heard from somebody, but so is that when we talk about problems or struggles in our life, how men and women deal with them is different, right? Men, think about a waffle. There's little bitty squares where you can put syrup in a square, and it doesn't really affect the other squares. There's totally syrup. It's totally going to melt through the waffle, but somehow men sometimes can sort of segregate and, cordon off pieces of their life to where it doesn't affect, or it seemingly doesn't affect the rest. Women tend to be more like spaghetti. You put syrup or sauce in spaghetti, it just mixes everywhere, right? It touches everything, and not one is better than the other, right? Because, men sometimes, again, broad brush doesn't apply to everybody, but men sometimes we're good about kind of faking, pretending a little bit, but we do it sometimes for survival, I guess. Like, things can be crumbling over here, but seem like we're okay over here. When most likely, I've seen some of the ladies, when there's relationship problems or any problems, it does tend to sort of affect everything, but that's a good thing, right? Because it makes us deal with it versus pushing it down and regressing in it, then it becomes toxic. So is my illustration way off? Do you guys see it play out in that way? Because if you're an agent listening, how you deal with marital issues or trying to figure out the balance might actually play into how I believe God has wired you. Okay. Am I off? Do you believe? And it's okay to tell me if you think I'm off, but it's what I can play out.
Okay, so yeah, I have not heard the waffle, but I've heard the boxes. How men can like put things in a box and then put it on the shelf and put it in a certain compartment, and we'll deal with that later. And women, again, broad stroke, and I can relate to that where it really does affect me. I think from the dynamic of our teams and the people that we work with. There have been times where I have been like, I'm telling you something is off. I can sense it. I can feel it. Of course, I am high on empathy, but I also can tell, I could read the room a little bit, and he does that too, to an extent. But I'm probably a little bit more in tune to that. And maybe that's a female thing, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. And so there have been times where I'm like, I'm telling you, we need to watch this, or I think you need to talk to this person about this. And there's been times where he's like, well, we'll just, it's fine. We'll deal with it later. It'll be okay. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
There's been a lot of times where over the years, I've kind of coulda, woulda, shoulda, hindsight 2020, listened to her intuitiveness. And then there's times where, we push forward and kept marching and trusted the process to play out. But yeah. So, and that takes a listening ear on my part and a willingness to sit and listen, which I don't do all that well all the time, but I'm learning over 20 years of marriage to be engaged, give a listening ear. Don't always have to have the answers. Men typically problem solvers, give answers, and sometimes she just needs to process. And so I think that's been a kind of a bit of a struggle for us in our marriage relationship and operating a business. And she's more boots on the ground more than I am now, but her being able to share with me just general frustrations about things, or things that were popping up that were frustrating, or problems to be, I was looking at problems to be solved, but and not expect me to have an opinion or to try to give an answer, but to really just listen. So that's challenging for sure.
Which is a waffle mentality, right? I've got a little square I got to deal with, right? Let's solve it, versus no, let's talk about it. Let's figure out how it all. And I just need you to listen. And I'm not asking you to be a solver, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not asking you to go confront the situation or make phone calls for me. Just asking you to listen as I process everything that I need to process about the situation. And I've had to preface, I've learned this over the years. If I do want him to help me fix it, I will say, I'm telling you this because I absolutely need your help with it. But if I need him to listen, I'll say, now this might be hard for you.
I just need you to listen.
I just want you to listen to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I know him well enough to know when those times are that he will listen, and when those times are that he's not going to listen. He's just distracted. So, yeah.
Do you know what I love? What I'm hearing is that growing your business and growing your marriage can happen at the same time. And it's because you use each other for strength and for insight. And at some points, Casey, you got to lean into Todd, is what I hear. And then Todd, there's moments you got to lean into Casey.
For sure.
And if you're a business owner, you want to grow your business, you need to involve your spouse. And I'm not saying involve your spouse in every single little decision, right? But if you're a faith-based person, I'm not afraid to say that. I'm proud of it. I believe God put that person in your life to help you be the best version of you. And so if God put that person in your life to be the best version of you, you ought to lean into that person when it comes to even your business growing it, because they're going to tell you things that you don't see, right? Blind spots. I'm sure you guys see that all the time with the folks that you serve. Is that there's a spouse that's got a blind spot and only their spouse can see it. And it takes humility to sort of listen.
That's right.
Yeah. We have learned that, we knew at the beginning that opposites attract, right? We are opposite in almost every way. I could be cooking chicken and he'll be like, why are you cooking it that way? And I'll be like, why are you commenting on this? Why don't you cook it?
Yeah.
We are opposites in every way. And we could either use that to divide us or to help each other. So because we're committed to the relationship, we choose to help each other with the opposites. Now, there are days whenever it's not fun, it's not good,
Yeah.
but he tends to be more of a move forward at 1,000 miles an hour. We are going to do this. We're going to start this, and we're all in. And I tend to be like, let's just take a minute and think about this.
Do we have to start another thing?
Pull the reins back a little bit. Let's be a little bit more conservative.
She brings the consistency. She brings the loyalty. She brings the glue that holds things together. She helps pace me, which I need to be paced a bit at times, and so it's super helpful.
And he helps push me forward.
Yeah.
He has really helped me do things that I never thought I would be able to do. He's like, you can do it. Just go out there and do it. So we've balanced each other out like that.
Man, that's huge. So in every relationship, there's a gas pedal and a brakes, and you need both to drive a car. And if you're listening and your spouse is the opposite of you, which probably is, right? That's how we get put together. Value the gas pedal and value the brakes. Because they both totally have wisdom. Okay, so let's talk about balance. When you're talking about how much time do I spend with marriage versus on my business, could you share with us some strategies that you help folks with think about balance in their life when it comes to, family time, marriage time, business time? Are there any like specific strategies? Maybe even, I know you've shared a little bit already, but how you use that to grow Revive. How did you find balance in that? What were some specific things that you guys did?
Yeah, I can share a little bit to start. I think in the early years, we obviously were all the hats. We were nonstop, going like crazy. Wasn't a lot of time for our relationship. We'd bring it home. We'd have to figure it out. She would be good to talk about kind of the personal boundaries that she's really helped me with. For me, from a business perspective, Adam, it was always about, and it always has been, but it's about growing myself up out of a position, doing something as long as I can, and growing it to the place to where I can empower someone else, equip them, and release them to do, frankly, a better job than I did trying to start it. And what I've found over the years, we had to work really, really hard for the first 2, 3, 4 years. But as it grew, then I was able to have some, I guess, more capacity back. So as things got in order and got in place, that allowed me to be freed up to give more time, energy, and effort to the kids while she was in school, or, be able to give into the relationship a bit more. So yeah, there was that season. It was crazy. It was hard. But from a business strategy standpoint, systems, getting the right people in the right seat, empowering, equipping your leaders, spending that time with your top 20% producers to be able to be freed up so that you can have greater capacity for your relationships. So there are those seasons when you're starting something fresh and new that you're going to have to do just from that business perspective. That's what worked for me. That's what I did. So that was always my philosophy, was to try to grow myself out of the position and hand it off to someone else, empowering them and then leading them through that change, and leading them and empowering them as a leader. She was great with the personal boundaries as well, I think, in our relationship.
Yeah, definitely. There's times whenever I have to really be intentional about whether I'm going to take my laptop home. So, if you want to talk about like little strategies, are you going to take your laptop home? Of course, we all know we can work from our phones too, but it's silencing your notifications, not taking your laptop home. I have my little lanyard badge on right here. One of the things that I like to do at the end of the day is I like to take this off and I hang it on the mirror in my car. And it's like a reminder, like, okay, I'm putting this to the side.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's my way of, this hat that I wear as, a therapist, as a founder, as a leader. This hat that I wear, I'm going to put this to the side right now. And I'm going to try my best to be present with my husband and my kids when I get home. Sometimes I have to drive a little bit before I do that to give myself a little bit of breathing room. As far as our marriage goes, you know, I wouldn't say that we always consistently go on dates, but we try. We're not like really rigid about it, because I think if you get rigid about those kind of things, and then you don't meet that expectation, then everybody's disappointed. So we try. Another helpful thing has been getting away. Usually once a year, our kids will go stay with my parents for a week. So for us, that's a time for us to take time off work and then get away.
Yeah, I think one thing that stands out to me more recently in the last year, we've really tried to be intentional about is scheduling time for, if you can do this, if you work with your significant other, or if you don't even, you could schedule time through the week to maybe we schedule to talk business. We schedule to talk about what's happening here, so that protects our time at home. We don't, now granted, conversation happens. We got to be intentional about what conversations we're having. I think of when we get off work, you know, in the nice evening, sitting out on the deck and just trying to talk about life stuff or hear about from one another. If you don't work with your significant other, but you want to process things about work, maybe you need to schedule some time to like, hey, hear me out here. I want to run some things by you. What do you think about this? I'm dealing with this at work. I know that it's been taxing. I know that we haven't spent a lot of time together, but I think just scheduling that time and then knowing that there gives you some boundaries to have other time. And so it's just being very intentional about that. Yeah, it ebbs and flows, and you don't want to be so rigid that, you know, that it's not good, but there's also, so it's kind of like a little bit of in production management years ago, we talked about flex firm scheduling. There's a firm schedule, but we got to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Boy, those are four strategies I just heard, and they flowed so naturally. The first one, if hopefully you didn't miss it, is that you build systems to replace yourself. That frees you up to be there for your spouse when you need that. I'm gonna tell you something. That's not only just a good marriage thing that help your marriage. That's a business thing. Is that if you are not in the business of reproducing yourself, you don't own a business. You own a job.
Yeah. That's right.
And so you do that. So you're freed up to do that. Then, you know, Casey, you said, you know what? One thing I do is I leave work at work. I leave that. I kind of leave that laptop there. And then I love what you said. You said I hang my lanyard on my rearview mirror. So just kind of a physical signal to say work is done, and now it's time for my family to be fully present. Some of you agents need to listen to that. Maybe it's a stop sign or somewhere in your neighborhood where you're going to stop. You're going to say, okay, that's done. I'm putting it behind. I'm going to be fully present. When I get home, you schedule time to get away. Huge, really, really important. And then you also schedule time to say, hey, I'm gonna schedule time to talk with my spouse about what's happening at work. Because if you don't schedule it, sometimes it kind of just sort of mixes all in. You're always kind of talking about it, and
it leaks out all the time.
Yeah, I mean, on our date nights, and again, we're not as regular as we want to be, but on our date nights with my wife, we have two rules. The first rule is that we can't talk about our kids, and the second rule is that we can't talk about work.
That's
so
rough.
sometimes we just stare at each other.
Yeah.
Because we're just like, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
We talk about us, our hopes and our dreams, and you know, we try to stay away from politics, and so just we just stay about us, and that's huge. Okay, hey, I know that your all's time is super valuable, but I do want to ask two more questions. One's a little bit deeper, and I hope you guys can answer it for me. You know, I'm not going to pretend like every relationship is in a great spot. Maybe we've got an agent, a business owner. He's saying, Adam, you're talking about all these strategies. I'm in crisis right now. Or maybe they're saying, I don't know if my marriage is in crisis. So are there some warning signs that you guys have seen in other couples that, hey, you need to spend a season focusing on your marriage, or, hey, you need to go get counseling or whatever, right? Because it's easy to ignore things and hope that they go away, but you and I both know that they don't. Mm-hmm. So tell me of some warning signs that business owners can look for that their business is hurting their marriage.
Yeah. Gosh, I think as a mental health professional, I think when someone's mental health starts to slip, whenever they start to want to spend more time at work than anything else, and they're just like constantly, on their emails or on their laptop or phones, if it's constant and
always busy,
if they're not sleeping well, or if they're sleeping too much, if they don't really want to talk about things, or if maybe they're using a bit more substances or drinking more.
I was gonna say escaping, numbing.
Trying to escape. I think substances are one way to escape, but also sleeping a lot is another way to escape.
Sure.
Working a lot is an escape. Shopping a lot is an escape.
There's
all kinds of things that you can use to escape. And I think if you start to recognize them as trying to do that more, I think that's a warning sign.
Also, I would say too, just like asking the question, when was the last time you had a deep, meaningful conversation and connection with your significant other? And if you can't say, within the last week or 2 weeks, and you can't recall it, or I would say that would be a bit of a warning sign, again, because you want to be fully present with the person that you love. You want to be fully present. And then, like you were saying, Casey, just that sometimes we all do it. And sometimes we even do it in the name of good. Like, I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. I'm just working on this business. I'm doing it for the family. I'm so sorry I haven't been present. But really, truly, you're just probably masking the stress, the anxiety by staying busy and always working, and never being present, first and foremost, to yourself, to have any type of reflection, but then also to the person that your loved one. There's not been a meaningful conversation. There hasn't been even for us physical touch people, a hug in the morning. There's just like, hey, see you later. And that's going on for like 2 weeks. There's a problem.
Yeah.
And that might be something that you recognize. If I'm not touching you, hugging you, putting my hand on you, if I'm just so busy, that's probably a flag for her about me. And maybe sometimes I need that reminder too.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, that is so good. Man, both of those. There's going to be some real tangible things, right, that you're going to be able to see. But then, I also love when you said, when was the last time you guys had a meaningful conversation? Sometimes I wonder about that, because I can be tempted as well to talk about surfacey things, easy things. Maybe I do them to avoid argument, or I'm just tired from the day. But I think that gets back to where we schedule time with each other, where we're going to create spaces and opportunities to have that.
Yeah.
And you really can grow your agency without shrinking your marriage. I believe that. And a really good start would be to listen to this podcast over and over and over again. And especially if you've got some of these warning signs that are coming to play. I don't think this podcast is like the remedy for that, but it's a really great start to be able to sometimes open your eyes to say, hey, we need to get some help. We need to talk to someone. We need to lean into some resources, and which is the last thing I want to talk about today, which is something that you guys have started called P3 of relationships. We talk about it: peace, purpose, and prosperity. Tell us a little bit about that, how kind of what you're looking to do, how people can connect, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So obviously the heart of the conversation has been really the heart of P3, and that is relationships. Relationships are in everything we do. It's everything we are, and it's everything we do. And so, helping people really have a greater understanding for who they are, this intrapersonal work, this, understanding of self-awareness, personal growth. I'm the best version of myself whenever I have that understanding within, but then I also see that played out in the context of my closest relationship. And so P3 is really about helping people find peace, purpose, and prosperity through the relationships, whether that's at work, with your friends, with your significant other, We're exploring, it's really early stages. We're exploring about the different modalities that we would use for that, but definitely some coaching, life coaching, career coaching, but also some consultation work around teams and strategies and people and developing people and leaders. And eventually maybe down the road, because she's a licensed therapist, we would consider some type of counseling type initiatives. But for right now, it's really around the coaching dynamic piece and some consultation work. So when people feel stuck, how do we help them get unstuck, whether that's stuck within or stuck in this relationship dynamic that they're struggling with? We want to journey, walk alongside, build trust quickly, and hopefully through our life experience and relationship, bring some things to the table for them to consider. I would say one last thing in closing. We're believers as well. We're people of faith. And there is a proverb that really stuck with me when I was thinking about coaching and how other people going through starting new coaching endeavors and things like that. And it's this proverb that says this: the purpose of a person's heart are deep waters, but it's the one who has insight to draw it out. And so through P3 Relationship Pros, we want to journey along with them and ask good questions, clarifying questions, and draw out of the person what's already within them, which is deep purpose, deep waters, deep wells of not only for themselves, but for others. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we're looking to do with P3.
Boy, huge. Yeah. And if you want to connect with you guys on that, you can find them on Instagram, P3 Relationship Pros. If you're listening, that's P3 Relationship Pros, or you can email Todd at p3relationshippros.com. You want to check them out. I got to tell you, I don't bring on folks that I don't believe in. And they walk, Casey and Todd walk the talk. They have grown an incredible organization. They're growing a second while not shrinking their marriage. And actually their marriage is growing. And so, hey, I want to thank you guys for coming on and encouraging our folks today. Absolutely. Any final comments before we wrap up? Said it all.
We said it all. Peace, unity in our relationships. Peace to all of you. We pray for unity, and also the purpose of pursue the purpose of your relationship, whatever that is, and prosper in your soul, but also in your relationship. But as our souls prosper, we believe that our relationships are going to prosper too. Yeah. And first and foremost in our marriages. So thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you guys. Appreciate you, Todd and Casey. Grateful for your time today.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Hey, that's going to be it for episode number 23 of To the Front. Hey, listen, I want to tell you as we wrap up something really, really important. It's something that I really struggle with, is that sometimes I think my business is everything. But I want you to know this. You can always go get another business. You can always go make another dollar. But you can't go get another family. You can't go get another marriage. Put the big rocks in first. Put what's most important in, and that's your marriage, and your agency is going to do just fine. Hey, thanks again. And this is the wrap on episode number 23 of To the Front. Until then, go lead with courage. Why? Because it's worth working and living for something bigger than you. Take care. See you next time.